Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fresh Off the Set. I am one of your hosts, Kami Stroot.
And I'm Laura Murray. Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, today's topic is a question that I want to hear what you have to say about it. But today's topic, I sit down with Dr. Stan Tatkin. He's the author of Wired for Love, and he unpacks the role of flirting in relationships. So this entire podcast, he talks about the line with flirting. When is flirting cheating? So I guess I'm just going to ask you, this is a loaded question, Kami.
This is a loaded question.
Do you think flirting is cheating?
Personally, I do not, but I also think so. I'm so excited to listen to this because everybody has their own personality. Some people are I'm very bubbly and very outgoing, and somebody who's a little bit more reserved might think that's being outwardly flirting, which in my mind, I would never be flirting in front of someone in front of my husband, but I'm also just being friendly. So it really is kind of like, it is a loaded question. You have to really ask yourself, is it intentionally? Are you trying to get attention, or are you just being a kind person and someone's really is into you?
What is, why are you doing it? And he unpacks so much of this. He talks about, he also has a really, naturally outgoing personality. He talks about when it's okay, when it's crossing the line, how you talk to your partner about this. Anyway, he was so much fun to interview. He's fantastic. What do you say we take a listen?
Do it.
I am lucky enough to be interviewing Dr. Stan Tatkin. He is a relationship specialist, and we are talking today about flirting. Is flirting cheating? Is it harmful? Is it harmless? So, Dr. Stan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. So I already asked it. Flirting. So many people do it. Can it be harmful or harmless? But in your experience, doctor, why is it it's such a complex social emotional skill?
It is, and it is actually a good skill. There are some people who cannot flirt and don't know how to do it, and also don't notice if somebody's flirting with them. They can't tell. So flirting is, like you said, a complex social emotional skill set. And it is one of those skill sets that also makes people popular and engaged. So there's flirting to seduce somebody, and there's flirting to have somebody really feel that you're paying attention and that you're interested in them and that you're attracting them to something, right? Doesn't always have to be for romance or sex.
Oh, that's so interesting. And it's funny you say this. When I was dating my husband, he always joked. He was like, you never knew when I was flirting. And I, looking back, had no idea. So
he could get away with a lot then.
I think I was just super oblivious to this, which we may talk about later. So talk to me about how flirting can influence both attractiveness and friendliness. You mentioned that. How does it do that?
Well, may I dovetail on what you just said? Is that there are people who are acutely aware that their partner is flirting and not happy about it. Some people are very sensitive to the signs that someone is flirting with their partner, or their partner is flirting with someone. So, the opposite can be true. So what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Yeah. How does flirting influence both attractiveness and friendliness in social interactions? How does it do that?
Well, people would still talk about President Clinton, that he had this charisma about him. He was charming. Now, when we hear charming, oftentimes we think badly of it, at least in my profession. It signals antisocial behavior, signals narcissism. But in this case, it also signals an ability to bring people in, an ability to make people feel that you're really listening and that you're interested in them, or that you're attracting them. It doesn't have to be, right? Like I said, for purposes of seduction, sexually or romantically. But it is a skill set, and you might think of the most popular kids in school, the most popular people, politicians. Have to be charismatic, and we know the ones that aren't, that are focused on. They have a charisma of a rock, and they're not that way. And so just like lying is a social emotional skill, we think of it as terrible, right? We shouldn't lie. But we also know the most popular kids in high school are some of the best liars. And that, again, has to do, it could be something that's antisocial, or it could be something that is finessed, that is socially, emotionally appropriate. The way somebody pivots, or the way a politician softens something, their rhetoric. And that also is another skill set as well. And it can go along with the flirting. But there are people who don't realize that they flirt for romantic attraction, and may be unaware that they're doing that.
Oh, interesting. And I mean, like I said before, I was one of those people, even from my teenage years, that I never knew when someone was flirting with me. I had no idea. So it's surprising that I'm married. I had no idea anyone was ever flirting with me. So let's talk about, when does flirting cross the line, into a territory that, could be perceived as betrayal or infidelity? Where is that line?
I think when a couple is properly organized, as knowing where the center of the universe is. Is it the couple? Is it work? Is it other people? Is it the self? When that is in line, let's say my wife and I, because I'm a flirt, we move together as a couple. And so if we're in public, and I feel that somebody may be flirting with me, or if I feel that it starts to become uneasy, I will include my wife, and so she'll be there with me. So I think the flirts that cause trouble in the relationship are those who actually like, separating from their partner at parties or gatherings, and will have one-on-ones, and where the partner feels excluded. And that can bring up suspicion. That can bring up a sense of threat. We call that mismanagement of thirds. In other words, the couple is a primary attachment dyad to some, unless they have a throuple, unless they have, a larger group. But let's say couple. And within that dyad, everything outside of it is considered a third: a person, a task, a preoccupation, an addiction. Any of those things all of those things are thirds. The mismanagement of that is where I have a special relationship with someone else, and you aren't invited, or you aren't included, or I shield you from information or cloak it. That creates jealousy. That creates a problem with all human primates. That's just part of our psychobiology.
Yeah.
And so the person who is causing the problem is the person who is not sharing the third with their exclusive partner, right? That's the problem. We often blame the jealous person, and that should not happen.
Yeah. And I mean,
so that's the, go ahead.
I'm no expert. And when I'm going to say this, you're going to laugh at me, and it's fine. Laugh away, doctor.
No, I won't.
I was watching a reality show last night, and there was a couple, and the woman was mad at her fiance, and it was almost like she got back at him. So she left him from eating, and then she walked over and started having a secret conversation with another guy, and talking about flirting, and how he used to be the kind of guy she'd want to date, and how he could call her up whenever he wanted. And I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. She's keeping her partner in the dark and kind of starting this other conversation, leaving him out of it.
Right. And yeah, that's not good. And it's also a little adolescent. She's trying to show him what it feels like she's getting even, right?
Yeah.
And that's not good. That's not the way we want partners to behave.
Exactly.
But yeah, that would be an example, right? That would be an example. But some people just do this, and there are repeated offenders that even up until their 80s, their partner makes it a big issue, because they feel that their partner is excluding them and wants to court other women or other men. And so this can be a real problem. It is considered cheating if the person is doing this consistently and cloaking their activities with another person that is threatening.
So if someone discovers this, they're feeling threatened, they don't feel good, they've seen their partner has kind of crossed the line, they've discovered that their partner has been flirting with someone else, what are some of the first steps you recommend they take?
Well, the first thing I recommend is that when a partner feels threatened, the other partner takes notice and fixes it immediately without argument.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel threatened, and I tell you, you shouldn't feel threatened. Well, that's not helpful. That's
Mm-hmm.
like saying, don't perceive it that way. Your perceptions are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in itself threatening. That's adversarial. And so if you feel threatened, the way I think people should play it, safety and security always first, done. I'll take care of it. And I do not argue the fact that you feel threatened, right?
Yeah.
I won't win that argument
Right.
ever. And so that's the proper thing to do. The proper thing for the person who feels threatened is to say it directly.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel threatened by what I believe or what I perceive as flirtations with other people, and I'm not included. Here is what I would like. I'd like you to make sure that we are a couple, inside, outside, that we're the most important people in this room and in every room. We are the insiders. Everyone else are the outsiders.
Okay.
This should protect both of us from each
Mm-hmm.
other. Right. And that person doesn't have to say that whole line, but that's the spirit of this, that a good couple understands that they come first, everyone else second, that they have to be happy and okay, or nobody and nothing else will.
Okay.
Everyone's depending on them to play well with
Okay.
each other.
All right.
So
And
that's the main idea.
yeah. And so talking about how, I mean, you talked about how if someone was like, oh, well, you don't need to be worried. What you perceived isn't true. I mean, sometimes people think differently. Why do some people become, fixated on understanding, what happened, while others are like, let's just move on? Why is there that difference there?
Because when we're hurt, we want repair.
Mm-hmm.
When we're misunderstood, we want a correction. And the degree to which the other person relieves us quickly is the degree to which we feel safe and secure. And so, if you feel I hurt you, then you did. We tend to argue that. I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm right. My perception's right. My communication's right. My memory is absolutely great. My perception is the true one. And none of that in my research is true. We can never know whether we are communicating properly, whether we understand. Our memory is terrible. We can't rely on it. And our perception is like a funhouse mirror. And so if I defer to you, if you felt I did that, I did it. If you felt that I said, or you heard that I said that, I said it. No skin off my back. I apologize for that. Relieve you, because that's the most important thing. I'd rather save the relationship than be right. And so it takes a bit of discipline and self-control, because we really don't want to do that. We want to blame the other person, for sure.
Okay. So
that's everybody.
I mean, and we're still talking about like perceived infidelity. How does that cause emotional trauma?
Well, the perceived infidelity is treason, right?
Yeah.
Most of us in the human primate world have kind of this weird psychobiological built-in thing that when we're in a primary attachment relationship, we expect to be primary. And when we're not, we complain, right?
Yes.
I'm suddenly demoted to secondary or tertiary, and I don't like that because that's not my station as I expect. So I think this idea of someone else is getting something that is for me, that's the very meaning of jealousy. I have something and someone else is threatening to take it from me. That's jealousy. The other person who is responsible for letting that person, that activity, that addiction in has to do something, or they'll lose their relationship down the line. Yeah. This is just the nature of being human. And so, yes, it's safety and security first. If you're doing something that makes me feel insecure or unsafe, if you know what's good for you in the union, you better get to it and not delay, because it only gets worse. If I were to step on your toe inadvertently in a large gathering, and I just said, "Hey, watch where you're going," I wouldn't be friendly to you. If I said, "Hey, it wasn't my fault, somebody pushed me," I wouldn't be friendly to you. If I said your foot was so big, if it wasn't so big, I wouldn't have stepped on it, right? Anything else other than, oh my God, I'm sorry. Are you okay? Anything else won't do. And that's how we operate. When hurt, we want amends. We want repair, stat. That was how we challenged each other to duels to the death, or that's why we sue each other. That's why we lose family members, because we're not willing to fall on our swords when we must.
Yeah. And I mean, and speaking of that, and you said a little sooner, you said, if you know what's good for you in the relationship, you'll focus on that repair, and you will, say sorry. How can couples identify whether their relationship can recover from boundary crossing flirtation? How do they know?
Everything is determined by quick repair in a way that's done properly. That's why we invented amends, apologies, to save ourselves from being killed, save ourselves from being sued or losing our kids, or right. It is what is necessary if we are to stay together in alliance with each other. Otherwise, it will cause friction and then eventually fragmentation and war. That's all human beings, and there's no exceptions. When it comes to unfairness or injustice or insensitivity, all human beings will complain. And therefore, if the union is important and wants to stay together, they have to be addressed. Those concerns have to be addressed post haste. Otherwise, the threat increases, because I will believe that you actually do not care about me or how I'm experiencing this. So watch out. No bad deed goes unrepaid, as your example showed. And so we don't want to do that. That's just not smart. A union has to be, in this case, a partnership, a love partnership, has to remain an alliance, because the threat should be outside of that system. It shouldn't be in their backyard. It shouldn't be inside. That's dumb.
I love it. We're just calling it. That's dumb. We're just saying it simply.
Why would you have a war in your own foxhole, folks?
Yeah.
You cannot afford that. And therefore, you have to think as a team. And as a team, what happens to you happens to me. We cannot uncouple this psychobiological fact. Everything I do will affect you. And if it affects you, it's coming back to me, good or bad. Therefore, it's like a three-legged race. I cannot do anything that harms you that won't in turn harm me in return. That is impossible. It will always happen that way. And so the team approach here is that I must consider you at the same time I'm considering myself, or you'll confuse me as an adversary. That's the form. That's the formula. Okay. Very hard to do. Yeah. If our heart rate goes up to a certain level, or our blood pressure, because then our brains change and we become very pro-self and not pro-relationship.
Interesting. Okay, so if someone is, let's say our heart rate, it's level, let's talk about secure functioning relationships where you say there's a foundation of fairness, justice, and prioritization. Can you share some practical ways that a couple can, strengthen these elements in their daily interactions? So maybe down the line they have this foundation so that they can get through these things together and not having, fights in our own foxholes.
Well, couples are the only unions that don't organize. Every other union does. If you would join a rock band, they would organize. Why are we doing this? Where are we going? Right? Otherwise, I'm jumping off. Anything that we join in a free and fair union is based on social contracts and what we're going to do, what we're never going to do. So say us. And couples don't do that. They just don't.
As the doctor giggles.
It's just amazing. We come to these relationships with our fantasies, expectations, and from our entitlements from childhood, and we expect it to work without us coming together and creating the architecture of this thing called a relationship that actually doesn't exist in the physical world. It is made up. It's an invention, right? But we aren't making sure that we're inventing the same thing. And so people will fight for this very reason. I'm pointing over here, you're pointing over there. We're expecting to get along, and nobody could. So organize, come up with what this thing is. You should be shaping this as your own culture bespoke to the two of you.
Yeah.
This is the best thing, the right thing, the good thing that we decide. And this is how we're going to protect each other from each other by having principles of governance. So secure functioning is a series of social contracts between people that have to remain fair, just, and mutually sensitive, collaborative, and cooperative, or the system will break down. Period.
Okay. There you go. Period.
And,
End of.
yeah, that's just the way it is, folks. I mean, there is it's been this way since the beginning of our time on the planet. There is no other way that can last and be happy. And then we also want durable, being able to take as much load bearing without the wheels coming off of our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That takes preparation, planning for our devils, not our angels, because devils we are. If we're under a certain amount of stress, distress, or if the opportunity comes up, we can't be naive. And so the best thing to do is to see each other as the gods, the co-creators of this thing called your relationship that's elevated so that the two of you believe in something greater than yourselves. That is this thing that we created out of whole cloth that represents who we are and why we are and where we're going. It is what we do and what we never do. It is our culture. It is our relationship ethics. And if more people did that, we'd have more successful relationships that last long. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
that's the big thing.
yeah. And I mean, it's huge. And you say it so simply, but it's a hard thing to do. And in your book,
Yes,
Wired for Love, you emphasize, kind of what you were just talking about, relationship agreements and expectations. Can you explain a little more how couples can set clear, rules and why these are so crucial for long-term stability and trust?
First, I would go to the top. I would say, what is your central talk with your partner? What is our central organizing purpose as a couple? Why are we? What, who and what do we serve? And decide whether our highest priority in terms of decision making, is it the relationship? Is it ourselves? Is it our career? Is it our children? Is it our family of origin? What is it? It has to be one thing and one thing only, and all we have to do is agree on that one thing in order to get along. Uh-huh. If we say one of us says the self and the other one says the relationship, we'll fight. One of us says children, the other one says the relationship, we'll fight. Mm-hmm. So start at the top, because the top, if we are the most important thing, because we're in charge of everyone and everything as leaders, we're the two bosses, we're equal power, we're two generals, right? Yeah. If we're in charge of everyone and everything, then it would make sense that we come first, because if we're not okay, nothing nor anyone will be, especially children. So start at the top if you can, but then go below that. Should we tell each other everything? What about free flow of information? That's one of the biggest things that will take partners down. The lack of free flow of information, things that you had a right to know that I withheld, that is devastating. Uh-huh. And people do not want discovery of things they should have known. Uh-huh. So come up with, should we tell each other everything? And if so, why? And if not, why not? And what shouldn't we tell each other? And how could that possibly cause problems either way going, in the future? Yeah. So lock down safety and security. Anything that has or could cause either person to feel insecure about the relationship or unsafe in the relationship must be thought of, prepared for, prepared for, and everything locked down by agreement, so that is not left open, for it to take the relationship down. Safety and security first. Yeah. Everyone can do that. Let's think about what could go wrong, right? Yeah. What could either of us do that would make either of us feel insecure or unsafe? So the flirting thing. Yeah. Let's agree that when we go out together, you can be as flirtatious as you would like, but I am with you. We are together. You're not a solo agent. This is a team sport, not a solo sport. Uh-huh. Do you agree? Because I could do the same thing you're doing. I could do something else that would hurt you or make you feel insecure in public. So let's say neither of us do that. Do we agree that that would be something to stay away from? And that if it happens, the other person is given permission to enforce, remind, cue, hey, remember, you're supposed to be with me.
Right.
With that agreement, the other person must cooperate immediately without complaint. That's governance.
Yeah.
That's governance. I'm agreeing to let you govern me. You agree to let me govern you. That is really important.
Well, and it
Otherwise,
also sounds like it's really important to have that in place before something happens and not put it in place as something's happening.
no, you can't, because once something is happening, you're already at war and your brains have changed and you're not going to be able to think.
Mm-hmm.
This is postmortem. Hey, that didn't work out well.
Yeah.
Let's keep it from happening in the future, which is a 2-person job, not a 1-person job. So, I can be very complaining. I can be a pain in the ass. I'm somebody who will beat a dead horse. I am Jewish. I'm negativistic. I will go, oh, this is terrible. This is not going to work. My wife knows this, and she has permission to say, when it gets to be too much, knock it off. And she's done this. And I'll go and I'll smile broadly with my head tilted. I go, okay.
Good for you, doctor.
Well, because that's the whole idea. An agreement.
Yeah.
The agreement is collaborative, right? We are coming up with an agreement that works for both of us, not one of us. The cooperation part is essential. Therefore, I agreed, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to stop it.
Absolutely.
By agreement, or I'm not who I say I am, right? So this is a must. This is survival 101. Partners have to take these agreements seriously by doing them properly.
I love it.
And that means you and I have to buy into this as being good selfishly for me, having nothing to do with you, or I will not do this when I least want to. And that's what secure functioning is. In secure functioning, we decide what the right thing is to do, and we do that when it's the hardest thing to do, no matter what.
Yeah. And I know your book is called Wired for Love, but maybe you should call it, Survival 101.
Well, the last book was In Each Other's Care, and it was strictly about this.
Yeah.
Strictly about this.
Yeah.
That couples are a survival unit, and we tend to lull ourselves into thinking we're safe in this world, and we're not. That the world is and will always be a dangerous place with people and things that care less about us.
Yes.
You and I, are making a social contract to protect each other radically, be devoted, because we can, and because the alternative isn't any better than when we get outside. So that's the whole idea. We are agreeing to have each other's backs, public and private, at all times. We're agreeing to make decisions together by first getting each other on board and then, and only then, moving, right? We're doing all of that as if our inner thighs were bound together and we wouldn't be able to do anything, move, go to the bathroom, or drink unless we did it cooperatively with each other and with agreement and permission, right? That is how this must work.
Okay. All right. And doctor, this has all been so fascinating and it's so helpful. I want to ask you one last question before we kind of wrap up. So you have a background in psychobiological approach to couples therapy. What key takeaway do you hope, everyone listening, what do you hope they walk away with when it comes to managing flirting, boundaries, and trust within their relationships? Because you have given us so much amazing information, so much, it's been so great. But what is, that key takeaway you want people to walk away with?
All human beings are by nature unreliable, exploitive, warlike, aggressive, self-centered, selfish, opportunistic, moody, fickle, easily influenced. All of us can do these things that are terrible. Do not be naive. Everyone is capable. Therefore, come up with ways of how you're going to govern each other. Put the rules of engagement in now so that you can prevent each other down the line from creating things that are going to hurt the system, hurt the union. So all of us have the same problem, has no difference. It doesn't matter where we're from, it doesn't matter if we're male or female. If you're a human primate, You can do wonderful things and you can do terribly self-destructive, other destructive things. So plan, predict, plan, and prepare for the future. Don't look back. Fix what happened by thinking about what's next, not what happened. That's over. But take what happened and put something in place to keep it from repeating. That's the smart thing to do. That is what people can do instead of always looking backwards and litigating the past.
Amazing. All right. Dr. Stan, you have been an absolute amazing guest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
And
Laura.
I am sure there are so many people listening to this podcast that you have helped so much. And to everyone listening, thank you so much. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and we will catch you next time.
Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.